We have a podCAT.
PodCAT.
Look, the podCAT's here. Had to get some purring on the mic.
I think she knows that she will get extra attention if she bothers us while we're on
Yeah.
Zoom, because she does it when I'm on Zoom calls too.
She spent an hour on my lap while I was practicing bass last night.
Yeah, you showed me
Oh,
your
it was
picture.
so cute.
Yeah, I know. She loves that bass.
Yep. And she didn't lick it. She just was hanging out.
Oh.
Normally she licks the strings. It makes for some interesting practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here we are, middle of October. Gigs are slowing down, but we did have a doubleheader, two gigs in one day on Saturday. With Petty Nicks. Mm-hmm. We had one in Sedalia, which is a cute little town, south, near Highlands Ranch. No, near Colorado Springs, actually. It's not as far south as Colorado
and it's
Springs.
further west.
Yeah.
But it's kind of up in the foothills, not really in the mountains, but getting that way. And neither of us had seen the downtown of Sedalia. I've played gigs there. There's a country club or something outside of there that has like a event center, and they have weddings there. So I'd played that, I don't know, 5 times or something. But I had never seen the cute little downtown, and they had like a tiny little 2 blocks of...
Yeah, it was cute, and just the rolling hills around there are so pretty.
And the location of the show, the ranch, what was it called? Sun
something.
Ranch.
Yeah, it was gorgeous. So it was a festival, several bands playing.
360-degree views.
Oh,
we were kind of like on a little rise, so you could just see
spectacular.
Yeah.
And the weather was great too. It was cool but warm. Like, it was that perfect autumn weather in Colorado where when the sun is directly on you, it's a little hot, and when the sun's not directly on you, it's a little cool.
And there's a coolness to the wind. When the wind blows, it's cool.
Yeah.
It was not, however, kind to my guitars, who did not like getting sun and cool. Didn't like getting sun and cool wind on them at the same time. They were just going absolutely crazy. In Petty Nicks, I changed guitars a lot. And I wound up having to do 2/3 of the set with one guitar because it was all I could do to keep that one guitar in tune. And the guitars that were sitting on the rack they were garbage. They were like a half step out of tune. Like, they were they were not dealing with it well. Dry, alternately warm and cool, and not having it.
Yeah.
Anyway, great show though. Lovely people.
The most beautiful portable bathrooms I've seen in my life.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Did you visit those?
They make really nice portable bathrooms now.
They were luxury bathrooms. They were like country club bathrooms.
Yeah, it's like a trailer. It looks like maybe like the biggest U-Haul trailer that you can get.
Uh-huh.
And it's these really nice restrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Anyway, and they had lots of food, and bottom line, they made a beautiful thing. And then we went to the Boot Barn in Colorado Springs. And that was I think that was a great show. I think maybe, I wonder if part of the reason, we'll talk about a few things, but part of the reason we played a little less long this time. We didn't. Yeah. And that little bit might have been the difference between walking away feeling like that was, because it did feel unbelievable, electric.
It might have been our best show.
It might have been.
Ever.
It really might have been. It was, the crowd was,
oh my gosh,
just amazing. Yeah. The band, we weren't, I don't think the band was better than normal, but the crowd was.
Yeah, and then we played off that.
And then you did some different things. So,
yeah. Like things have been happening lately, this came to me in the moment. I just thought I would ask the crowd who likes Tom Petty better and who likes Stevie Nicks better. I might have gotten the idea from Julian, because he divided the crowd a couple songs earlier by saying, who's seen us before and who's seeing us for the first time?
Right.
And so there's a cheer in response to both of those things. We were surprised how many people were seeing us for the first time.
That was kind of shocking, although I did talk to someone after the show who had said they'd heard word of mouth. That's why they came, is because their friends were like, you got to see that show. That's always nice to hear. But it was 2/3 of the crowd had not seen us before.
That's pretty crazy.
And for a place, we've sold out 5 times now?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's just for it still to be new people is...
Yeah, that's great
I don't
news.
understand it. It is great news, but that's not what you would expect.
Yeah, otherwise you would burn through a crowd eventually.
Right. You just can't, do it. But anyway, so you guys employed some more crowd work type of talking.
Yeah. In a way we never had before, like asking them, rather than just like, hey, how you guys doing tonight, which we always do. Well, Julian always does.
Yeah.
This was like, identify yourself as part of this group or identify yourself as part of that group.
Right.
And so I guess maybe that gave me, not consciously, but it gave me the idea to do this Tom Petty versus Stevie Nicks thing, where I was like, who loves Tom Petty? And woo, big cheer.
Yeah.
And then, who loves Stevie Nicks? Actually, I said, who loves Tom Petty more? Who loves Stevie Nicks? So I made it a little competitive.
Right.
Who loves Stevie Nicks more? And the response knocked me back.
It was real loud.
It was a wall of sound.
Yeah. It was...
I've never been in front of anything like that.
Well, Maddie, Vic's daughter, had something on her... the watch, the Apple Watch, that warns you when you're in a dangerous amount of volume.
Yeah.
And apparently not during the songs, but after songs, and when you were doing cheering things, it was going off saying, like, you should leave the area, you're in a dangerous level of... Oh my gosh. We got some foot kicking.
I'm scratching her neck and her foot's going... Okay, guess that's enough.
Got enough of that. So yeah, that the crowd work I think really helped. Gosh, I don't know really what else to attribute all that to. I feel like so much better. It is so much better without an opener for us.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I feel like it's just, hitting them when they're fresh and ready to really rock. It's like, that seems like a huge difference to me. Mm-hmm. Because when we first couple of times we did do Boot Barn, we had openers and it just wasn't the same energy. Mm-hmm. So the crowd work I thought worked. Mm-hmm. I think it really brought people in. Mm-hmm. You switched up a couple of stories, but you still kept, a little bit of get to know you. Yeah, I'm really into feeling the crowd lately. That in a way, like I've never been able to do before, because I'm getting a lot of chances to do it now with the same show and the same songs and the same stories about the songs. I'm able to like find the little differences that you can't do when you have like one show and you're planning out all of the talking, which we're going to talk about your client. Right.
And actually, my client today too. So at this show, I felt like the energy level was so much higher that when we went into Dreams, which we normally kind of, we have this touching introduction where I talk about how much the song means to me and my dad and the road trips and with the family and blah, blah.
Right.
I go deep on that one normally, but I felt like this crowd was riding high. They didn't want to listen to that.
No.
And so I was thinking of like, first of all, how can I shorten it? And, my main idea is this is on one of the first cassette tapes I ever bought. That's like the main idea. And then there's a million ways to tell that story.
And cassette tapes is the personal detail, because that tells...
how old we are.
Yeah. Well, the crowd is too.
Yeah.
So that's the detail. Go on.
Yeah. So I think that's where that's where partly why I wanted to ask the crowd to cheer for, Tom Petty versus Stevie Nicks, because I did not want to go down to like a big old touching story. And so
wouldn't have worked.
Yeah. So I did that thing, and then I said some one sentence thing about like, this song is near and dear to me because it's on one of the first cassette tapes I ever bought. Hope you enjoy it. Boom. Sing along. So sing along was the other part. These guys are all riled up. I'm not going to tell a big story about it. Just sing with me. They were singing so loud. Oh yeah, that's the other thing I did.
So loud.
I let them sing part of it, and usually I let them sing the part without the harmonies.
I was so impressed that you picked, so the chorus is 4 lines.
Thunder
only happens when it's raining. And the first 2 have harmony on it. The third one does not, and then the fourth, the harmonies come back, and you were like putting it out to the crowd on that third one.
Yeah.
And they were thunderous. Like, it was not like, oh, I can see that people are singing. It was like, I can hear them as well as I could.
The whole room.
I could hear them as well as I could hear you.
I love it.
Yeah, it was, and you've never really done that. I mean, we've done some singing along stuff, but not so organized.
Yeah, yeah. I've let the crowd sing on Landslide once before.
That is right.
Once before.
Right.
I don't think I've ever had the crowd sing by themselves on Dreams.
Right.
But man, I could just feel like that room was full to the top.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And that's one of the reasons that it is great to do more shows over time or whatever. Because, when we were touring, that was the great experience. I often talk about that's where I learned so much of what the small amount I know about this stuff, especially with talking, is because we would get on the bus after the show, and Ben and I would sit at the little bus table and or when we were in the van, we'd sit in the van on the way back to the hotel and be like, how did this work? And let's tweak this and let's change this thing we're saying. And we got this instant feedback every night after the show, because was it do you sell 200 CDs and sign autographs for 3 hours? Or do you sit there at the autograph table and people pass you and go, hey, good show, man?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You go, we messed something up. We moved that thing and now it doesn't work, and just we would get that instant feedback over and over again. And that's part of why I've always been so anti earlier in this project or other projects, constantly changing the set list when you're not playing very often, because then you don't have a chance to really experiment, find those moments, whatever. It's a different set every time. You can't really do the same.
Right.
You can't develop those, like you said, those making the story better and better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree. So you've been working with a client in New York quite intensively the last couple of weeks, and a large part of what you've been working on is what she's going to talk about and how she's going to.
Right. So I've had my head, and I've been working with a singer-songwriter in Boulder, Christopher Morse. I definitely check him out. Yeah. So I've been really had my head in stage talking for the past couple of weeks, and it's been really fun developing. So for Anna's show, which is going to be in Bermuda, this beautiful, unbelievably beautiful old theater in Bermuda. But it's a jazz show, and it's about the Harlem Renaissance, and so it's a themed show. It's sort of in its own way, it is a tribute show. It's a tribute to the Harlem Renaissance and some of the music that came out of that, and the poetry and stuff. But anyway, we've been really working on developing those talking points, because it's a talky show. She's going to do a talky show, and I think what I've kind of realized, I'm not going to. Maybe this isn't it. This is a working theory, so don't hold me to this. I may think something different tomorrow, but I think one of the things that you do that will work is finding a universal human experience that you have an interesting personal spin on. And that's what often is going to work. And it sort of is different from saying this is why I'm doing this song, or this is why I wrote this song, or here's the story of how I had the idea for the song. It's let me tell you so I was working with Chris, and he was talking about, anyway, it's a song that's about, wanting to run away with your significant other. Let's just grab our bags and run away together and whatever. And I was find something that is maybe even just adjacent to that. It isn't that, but find something that's kind of adjacent to that idea, and then that you have a personal spin on an experience, which I sort of think is what works so well about that. I bought this cassette for my dad when it wasn't really a gift for him. It was, because I wanted it, which is such a kid thing. Maybe not literally. Everybody has done that, but that's a very universal thing. But then you've got your personal spin you can put on it, partially because you're doing the Stevie Nicks stuff now, and then, you know, whatever.
Do you think that part of the key is focusing on the specific story rather than the universal experience, letting people draw the universal experience out of it?
Oh, yeah, that's precisely it.
Okay. So it's not like, you know, when you've just had a breakup and like you're feeling really bad about yourself, and that's when you write songs like this. Like, that's too specific or too universal. I mean, it's universal, but it's too vague.
It's too wide, and also I feel like there's a weird way that people don't like that. You're hey guys, you know what it feels like.
Everybody knows the feeling of.
Yeah, there's like I don't know. It's not terrible, but yeah, I think you let them fill in the blanks. You tell your personal story, and they go, "Oh, I've also had that experience," because that's a universal human experience. If it might be the experience of being scared. It might be the experience of just falling in love, just falling out of love, like all these things that 95% of your audience is gonna, and you just let them draw the conclusion, and then you hit them with the song, and you don't necessarily need to connect the dots between your story and the song, but when it all comes together, that is that kind of stage talking.
I think it's easier to talk that way in specifics too, because that's how we tell stories. That's how we converse. You know, it would be so much more interesting and personable to say, so back in 83, you know, we were heading out on this road trip and I forgot to get gas and we broke down on the side of the road or whatever, rather than trying to be universal and saying, you know, things happen when you go on road trips. Sometimes you forget to put gas in the car, and like, that's not a story. Who talks like that?
Who talks like that? And it is story. I was talking to a third client who was like, I always wanted to talk about at the beginning of this song. This song's about the income inequality in our country, and like all these people, all these things are broken and blah, blah, blah. And they were like, you know, and so I have this thing I've, you know, concocted to tell before this song that is about that also. And they were like, but it always falls flat, and it just always feels like it just takes the energy out of the room. And I was like, yeah, because there's no story.
Yeah.
There's no...
You need to tell a story about
that is a statement. It's not a story.
Yeah. What's his story related to that? Did he go bankrupt? Does he have employees that struggle? I mean, who is this person?
Did you see somebody on the street?
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? If you put it in a story format, that definitely... it lands things differently.
Yeah.
Now, that's not the only talking to a crowd you do. Oftentimes, you're going to do crowd work, which is what you were talking about, where you're going back and forth with the crowd, and who here is married, who here is not, or whatever you're doing. I was telling you about that whole thing. Yeah, it's just, I really think it's that taking a universal experience that you have a interesting version of, or a way that, and it doesn't have to be wildly interesting. It doesn't have to be like, you know, I got hit by a meteor when I was, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be this amazing story, but it just has to be, and then that's sort of what makes people feel like they know you a little bit. I know this weird personal story about you that isn't that crazy, but it's unique to you.
And it's like you had a conversation with that person.
And again, what we were talking about a couple episodes ago, so much of my thinking lately has been thinking about how we pull that group of strangers into a crowd. And one of the ways, it's kind of that universal thing and getting everybody feeling kind of the same thing. Or, again, crowd work works great for that. And it's hard, like, don't get me wrong, that's the thing that's hard about coaching stage talking, which I feel confident in doing, but at the same time, it does take some experimentation. So you can concoct, like, that is the most beautiful story. Like, I'm getting teared up hearing you tell that personal story, and maybe it doesn't work in front of people, and like, you're not going to know until you get it on its feet and see it, and maybe it needs to be tweaked. And I believe so strongly that, gosh, I know I'm going on here, but I believe so strongly that it's really important that people find their way of doing those sorts of things. Like, maybe you come up with some crowd worky thing, but if it's not authentic, if it's not the way you really would talk or your real personality, it's not really going to work, because it's just not, you know, it's just not going to feel, you know, really right. That's one thing that I've really evolved with too. This kind of in the past couple of weeks, I've kind of started being extremely careful about not putting words into people's mouths. Like I can think of what I think is the perfect thing to say, but what's better is for me to give you the structure and the idea, and here's the moment you need to create here, but you need to find the words. Mm-hmm. Here's what it needs to do, and maybe you come back and you're like, here's what I think my words are, and I'll go, nope, you missed, try again. But like you need to find those words. You know, I can even get them really triangulated to this really fine point, but when it comes down to what you're actually saying, you know, it needs to be, the person needs to find their own words. It needs to be in your words. It can't be my words.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I will give my old-fashioned spiel on stage talking, which is, I believe firmly that when any sort of public speaking doesn't work or doesn't go over that great, a majority of the time what I've figured out that it is that people lose track of what's being talked about. They get lost.
The speaker?
No. The audience gets lost. That they, you know, and they're going to sit there politely and listen. Everybody's had this experience. You're like, I've kind of lost track of what this guy's saying, and I'm going to sit here politely. And when he stops and he makes that little cadence thing where I know that he's ended his thing, I'm going to clap because that's what you do politely. But I have not paid attention to any of that. My mind's been wandering because I got lost early on, and I was like, I don't know where this is going. So my basic thing that will immediately improve any public speaking is, number one, speak up louder than you're normally used to, especially singers, because that mic is set for your singing voice, not your talking voice.
Right.
So either make sure to get super on it or speak up, you know, at very full voice. Number two, use small, common, easy to understand words. You know, make it clear, make it stuff that is easily heard over whatever.
Over a din and echo in the room and everything,
And then the big one is leave pauses. And you're great at doing that. Julian's great at doing that. Julian's just a natural. I know I brag on him all the time, but he just blows me away that he knows what he knows. The example I always give is Obama. Like, that's where Obama was such an effective speaker, because he would like land a piece of information and then he would pause and he would wait for that to kind of ripple through the room and everybody would get on the page with what he just said, and then he would move on. And very often when people talk to crowds, they don't. And maybe they say something that's an awesome emotional thing to say, and then they just keep talking and everybody's processing that thing you just said, but now 2 or 3 sentences have gone by and they're lost. You know, so that's my 3 things that I tell everyone. Little unsolicited advice for the audience.
Well, we do know that a lot of people who listen to this are musicians, so
yeah,
maybe they're interested in hearing it.
That's what I've over the years watching shows and being at shows, whether I was playing or running sound, or there was a guy we played with in Jacksonville who was sort of Cody-like in like a legitimately could just talk to an audience and go off the head and actually like banter. And he could literally do it, but he would never stay on the mic. He would just kind of be ducking around and he'd be drinking some water and he'd kind of be messing with his guitar and he'd lean back from the mic and we could hear him in the monitors and he was so good, but you'd literally look out in the audience and they're going like, what's he? And it was just, it wasn't what he was saying wasn't landing. It was that no one could hear him, or he'd start some funny thing and then he'd back off from the mic to tune his guitar and they wouldn't hear the end of the joke. And we used to just be like, stay on the mic, dude. What are you doing?
Oh my
like,
gosh.
And he just would never listen, you know. Yeah. But anyway, gosh, what did we say? We were going to talk about stage talking.
You know what I forgot to mention is we had an acoustic show, a youth recital and acoustic showcase on Sunday. You didn't go to that. That's probably why you weren't thinking of it. But yeah, we had the double header on Saturday and
then the acoustic showcase.
Yeah, and you were going to talk about what you just talked about. And yeah, I think I'll just wrap with the youth recital and acoustic showcase.
Yeah, how was it?
It was great.
Yeah.
So this was the first time we've combined those 2 things, the youth recital and acoustic showcase, and we're definitely going to keep doing it that way. It was an effective way to have both opportunities. rather than like lugging a sound system someplace to go do a half-hour youth recital. The youth recital literally was a half hour long.
Yeah.
I think it was 8 kids. And it was so cute. So these were mostly Kristen's piano students. Kristen, who wrapped her studio into Performance High. She was mostly a piano teacher before. She's mostly a voice coach now, but she still has plenty of piano students. So it started out with like, little tiny tots, like going up to the piano and playing like blink, 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 blink. And that'd be the whole song. And then people would clap and they'd turn the page awesome, and they'd play another 10 seconds of music.
Yeah.
All the way up to this impressive, multi, what do I want to say? Parts of a classical song, multi-movement piece. Actually, she played 2 pieces, just flowing and beautiful, and I don't even know I don't know what piece she played. I think I heard the title, but just gorgeous and way better than I will ever be able to play piano in my life.
It is amazing how good some people get at playing piano.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was everything in between. So that was the youth recital, and that was great to have. Then we cleared the room, and then we had the acoustic showcase. And that was...
You, turned over the room?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, we told people that they were welcome to stay, but we didn't charge for the youth recital, because who's going to charge to come watch 25 minutes of other people's kids going plink, plink, plink?
Right.
So, I said, you're welcome to stay. It's just a $10 cover if you do. And we might actually change that model going forward for recitals and acoustic showcases.
I like that idea.
Partly because the Muse doesn't usually run recitals as a public ticketed show.
Right.
We talked about that afterwards. So we're probably just going to rent the room. Anyway, acoustic showcase, I would say a couple notable moments were Louisa Bisio.
Oh.
She and her guitar player did 3 or 4 songs.
I bet that was great.
I told her she's like a tiger in this little packet. She's like, I need more stage presence. And I'm like, dude, it's going to take this much before you are... There's just this inside of her.
Yeah.
It's like, it's crazy. And she was, speaking about being on the mic, she was like 2 miles away from the mic.
She's so loud.
Her voice, she didn't need the mic.
Yeah.
She filled the whole room
with we were talking about the rehearsal for the showcase that and
that was in front of a full band.
In front of a full band, didn't even bother getting on the mic. She was just pacing around the room, and what if it's just fine? Yeah, and she's smaller than you, I think.
Yeah.
I mean,
she's a lot smaller.
No bigger, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry I missed that. So Bisio,
so that was really cool. And another highlight was Callie Truman, who's Kristen's piano student and my voice student, and she writes her own songs, and she played 3 original tunes accompanying herself on guitar, and the second one made people cry. Like, my eyes were wet. Alyssa, the voice teacher, got up and ran over to her purse after the song was over, because she's like, I need a tissue. Like, oh my God. She's like, what is this fucking Phoebe Bridgers here? Like, what's going on? This is crazy. She's 14. How can she have such deep feelings and express them so beautifully in a song?
Yeah.
Oh, so talented.
Such a cool thing.
Yeah. Anyway, everybody did great, as always. They always rise to the challenge. And it was a great experience.
Yeah, I'm so glad.
And Alyssa and Joe did an impromptu song to close the night.
Oh, that's cool.
They just, decided, during the break, they're like, how about we do a song? Is it okay with Adrienne? I was like, yeah, sure.
Oh, so they just got up and did...
Yeah.
Oh, that's
no rehearsal.
Cool. Yeah. Gosh. Well, full week.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's do our sponsors at the end.
Oh.
This podcast is sponsored by Performance High.
Performance High Voice and Music Studio and German beer.
The weather's been getting cool. It's been hitting the spot. Mm-hmm. So we are sponsored by the concept of beer from Germany.
What's that beer that you brought home with the weird name?
Hacker Shore.
Hacker Shore with a P in front of Peshore.
Yeah,
so
Peshore.
It looks like Hacker Peshore.
Hacker Peshore. And it's got the 2 dots over the shore.
Peshore.
Peshore. But that's a Martzen beer. Yeah, it's been, with the weather, has just been so nice and cool, and it's just been those just slightly more flavorful German beers have been hitting it. So, Performance High and beer from Germany.
All right. Let's close this one here before you keep talking about beer. You should get a job selling beer.
I should also just talk less in general.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay. Thanks, guys. See you next week.